He wasn't supposed to be there, and she wasn't supposed to feel anything. The grand ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers, filled with billionaires, politicians, and cameras flashing like lightning, but none of it mattered to Melissa. As the CEO of a global foundation, she had mastered the art of smiling without feeling, of speaking without revealing, of standing tall even when her world had quietly fallen apart. Tonight wasn't about prestige. It was about her daughter. 8-year-old Lily stood beside her in a delicate white dress, her small fingers wrapped tightly around Melissa's hand, and out of fear, but out of habit. Lily hadn't spoken or heard a single word since the accident that took her father. Since that day, laughter had disappeared from her eyes, replaced by a silence that no doctor, therapist, or expensive treatment could fix. Melissa had tried everything except hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope broke people like her. The charity gala was meant to raise funds for children with disabilities, but to Melissa, it felt like a stage where everyone pretended to care. She had brought Lily tonight not for publicity, but for one last attempt to make her feel something, anything. Yet as guests approached, offering polite smiles and awkward gestures, Lily remained distant, her gaze lost in a world no one could enter. Melissa's heart ached, but she hid it well, until something unexpected happened. Across the room stood a man who clearly didn't belong. Paul wasn't dressed like the others. His suit was simple, slightly worn at the edges, and he held himself with quiet humility rather than pride. He wasn't networking, wasn't trying to impress anyone. Instead, he stood near the dessert table with his young son, gently adjusting the boy's collar and smiling, as if nothing else in the world mattered. There was a softness in him, something real, something Melissa hadn't seen in years. Their eyes met for just a second, and Paul quickly looked away, almost apologetically. But that brief moment, it unsettled her. Then Lily tugged at Melissa's hand. It was subtle, almost nothing, but for Melissa it was everything. Lily was looking at Paul, not just looking, watching. Paul had crouched down in front of his son and began moving his hands, fluid, expressive, alive. His fingers danced through the air with a grace that didn't need sound. Sign language. Real, beautiful, heartfelt sign language. His son laughed silently, responding with his own gestures. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Lily's eyes lit up. Melissa frowned. She had seen therapists use sign language before, but this was different. This wasn't practice. This was love. Before she could think, Lily let go of her hand and slowly walked toward Paul. Melissa's breath caught. People noticed. Whispers spread. The powerful CEO's daughter walking away toward a stranger. Paul looked up, surprised, as Lily stood in front of him. For a moment, neither moved. Then, gently, carefully, Paul raised his hand and signed something simple. Hello. Lily blinked, and then she responded. Melissa felt her knees weaken. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished, but it was real. Her daughter, her silent, broken, unreachable daughter was communicating. A connection was forming right in front of her eyes, built not on wealth or status, but on understanding. Paul smiled, not at Melissa, not at the crowd, but at Lily, like she was the only person in the room who mattered. And just like that, something inside Melissa began to break. But this time, it wasn't pain. It was hope. She approached slowly, her voice softer than it had been in years. You know sign language. Paul stood, slightly nervous. My wife was deaf. He said quietly. She taught me. After she passed, I kept teaching my son. It felt like keeping her alive. Melissa's heart clenched. Loss. He understood loss, but unlike her, he hadn't let it turn him cold. As the night continued, something extraordinary unfolded. Paul didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't treat Lily like a project or a problem to fix. He simply sat there with her, talked with her, really talked, and for the first time since the accident, Lily laughed. Not loudly, not perfectly, but enough to shatter the silence that had surrounded her for so long. And Melissa, she watched everything change. Not just Lily, herself, because for the first time, someone hadn't looked at her as a CEO, a powerful woman, or a distant figure. Paul looked at her like she was human. And that terrified her, but also healed her. By the end of the night, the gala had raised millions. Cameras captured smiles, speeches, and success, but none of them captured the moment that truly mattered. A silent girl finding her voice, and a broken woman finding her heart again. What Melissa didn't expect was that the man who changed everything would quietly try to disappear. The next morning, Paul declined every offer, every connection, every opportunity that came his way after the gala. He wasn't interested in wealth or recognition. He had only come because his son's school needed funding, and now that it was secured, he believed his role was over. But Melissa wasn't ready to let him go. Not this time. She found him at a small cafe, sitting alone, helping his son with homework using the same gentle signs that had brought Lily back to life. For a moment, she just watched it, realizing something she had been too afraid to admit. She didn't need a perfect man. She needed a kind one. "Why did you leave?" she asked softly. Paul looked up, surprised but calm. "Because people like me don't belong in your world." Melissa shook her head, a faint smile forming. Maybe my world was the problem. There was a silence, uncomfortable this time. Then Lily stepped forward. She signed something, slowly, carefully. Paul watched, then translated with a warm smile. "She says she wants you to stay." Melissa's eyes filled with tears, not because of the words, but because her daughter had chosen someone again. And so did she. Months later, Melissa didn't just fund Paul's son's school. She built an entire program dedicated to children like Lily. But more importantly, she built something personal, a life. Paul became more than a memory from a gala. He became part of their everyday world, teaching, laughing, healing. And Lily, she didn't just smile anymore. She shined, not because someone fixed her, but because someone understood her. And in the end, Melissa realized the biggest truth of all. Sometimes, the most powerful thing in the world isn't money, status, or control. It's kindness. Because one quiet man, with nothing but love in his hands, gave a silent girl her voice back, and gave a broken woman a reason to believe in love again.